I don't care how long you've been doing posture therapy, I'm about to blow your mind with ways that you can modify the vast majority of posture exercises using a strap like this. This is the first in a series of many videos where we're going to be detailing how to use this multi-loop strap to, to really amplify and change your experience of so many posture therapy exercises. We're going to start with static extension chest openers today. Who am I? My name is John Clark. If you're not familiar with me, I also go by Posture Monster John. I am the only psychedelic posture therapist in the known universe, and I'm also the author of this book right here, Psychedelics, Chronic Pain, and the Posturedelic Hypothesis, which will be released June 4th. More info about that in the description down below. But we're here for static extension chest openers, which I'm telling you about because it's an exercise in my book that I've never covered before. So I need to make sure that people who are reading my book have a reference point. To get started with static extension chest openers, you don't actually need any equipment. However, I'm going to show you a modification where you can use a block like this one or an ottoman. I got this from, obviously, Posture Guide Mike. And you can We'll then cover how you would use a strap like this. There is a link in the description down below to a strap that would work. And let's get started. For static extension chest openers, we would start in this tabletop or hands and knees positions where I would have my wrists directly underneath my shoulders. I would have my hips or my knees directly underneath my hips. And then I would do one hand length forward, just like this. Shift my shoulders to be over my wrists once again. Sink the lower back, sink the upper back. You can keep your head in a neutral position or look forward if that provides a good feeling stretch for you. And then we would begin the chest opener motion from here. I'm going to change positions so you can see the chest opener motion a little bit easier because it's a modification of a standing exercise where we have our hand against the wall and we rotate the face of our elbow. It would look like this against the wall. However, we're going to be doing it here. And as you can see, the face of my elbows are rotating in and out. I'm rotating from the shoulder joint and I'm initiating this movement from the shoulder joint. My whole arm is rotating between my wrist and my shoulder, and that looks like the elbow moving right here. We want to do that the same on each side, right? So if I have one side that goes really far, one side that doesn't, I would limit this side to match this side. So I'm getting equal motion on each side. Over time, what we'd like to see is that range of motion expands equally on both sides. Now, that is the standard static extension chest opener exercise. You could do up to 3 sets of 40 seconds apiece on those, where each rotation in and out, that whole cycle would take 2 seconds. So it's a nice, slow, even motion and focusing on that bilateral equality, right? That is the standard chest opener, static extension chest opener position. If I want to do this in a slightly more difficult position, I could use a block like this or a small ottoman, a step stool, anything that is comfortable enough to put your knees on. And what I would do here is put my knees up on this block and then do the same thing, walk my hands forward to a comfortable position, move my shoulders over my wrists, let this upper back and lower back sag to the ground, and then I would initiate that same chest opener motion here. Now, obviously what we are doing here is working on shoulder rotation, right? But by adding this weight, especially in this position, we're using gravity to stabilize the shoulder joint more, and we are allowing the rotator cuff muscles to relearn what jobs they're supposed to be doing, because now the big joints, the big muscles, aren't having to stabilize the shoulder joint. The rotator cuff muscle, gravity is doing that job for the big muscles, so the little muscles can start to relearn their job just a little bit, right? Now, what I was just mentioning there about the big muscles getting in the way of the little muscles doing their job properly, that is at the heart of so many forms of shoulder dysfunction. And the reason that I bring that up is because it leads perfectly into discussion of why I love this strap for upper body things, because there is a form of how I'm going to apply it. You're going to see how I apply this strap to my lower body in just a moment. There's an analogous way I can apply it to the upper body, and it helps with lots of those shoulder joint issues as well. In fact, there's a version of chest openers I can do with this strap on my upper body. That's for a different video though, because the focus here is the lower body. If you noticed, my lower body was just kind of hanging out in both those positions. My quads are not very active, and it leads to the ability for compensations to remain unaddressed between the quadriceps and the fronts of the thighs here, and the hips, all the various muscles in the hips, pelvis, lower back. Leaves a lot of opportunity for unaddressed compensation. That's what the strap is designed to work on. So let's adjust the camera angle just a bit here. And let's take a look at how I'm going to put this strap on my lower body. First off, I have found the middle of the strap and I've placed it underneath my knees. Now I can pull each lead of the strap, wrap each lead around my thighs, take the leads, plunge them through. I should have worn lighter colored shorts, I suppose. You see how I have this space between my groin and the rope here. I'm going to plunge both leads underneath and then attach it to the corresponding foot, just like this. Now, depending on how tall you are or how thick your legs are, you may need to use loops that are up here, or you may not have it equal. You may have one loop, 1 foot in this loop, 1 foot in this loop, but then the middle just shifts and it all evens out in the end anyways. It's just finding the right way that works for you. And from here, I can cinch this strap up around my thighs a bit, and look what happens here. I can no longer straighten my legs. When I try to straighten my legs, this loop around my thigh prevents that from happening. I can push as hard as I want. Nothing. My legs are never going to straighten because I can't break this strap. Now, look at the interesting way this allows me to move my lower body, though. I'm moving my lower body largely as a unit, right? I can do this type of thing. I can even rotate. I can do all this type of stuff, but my quadricep muscles are not able to do much of that work. That work is having to come from my hips for both rotation, flexion, extension. It all has to come from the hips. How is this tying in to the static extension position? Well, I'm glad you asked. I can get into this position here, which was the position for static extension. And look what happens when I move my wrist forward. My feet come up off the ground a bit because of the length of the strap. Now I can actively push and lock out compensation in my hips and pelvis, or in my quadriceps for hip and pelvic motion. Like, my hip joints are very much fixed in space to a large degree, way more than I could attain without this brace. And my quadriceps are not being allowed to do any of the work of stabilizing my hips and pelvis. And I'll tell you what, this is a much more difficult exercise in this position. I'm sweating after just doing a few of them. And you can, of course, incorporate this into the elevated static extension position. So I can get up on the block. I could, this is a little bit more difficult to get into because the feet want to come off. You just need to cinch the strap on the hips and pelvis. Once again, go forward, and bam, I am locking out those quadriceps once again. I can push my feet away from my body as hard as I want. My legs will never straighten. Alrighty. So that is the multi-loop strap, lower body multi-loop strap modification for the static extension position. Once again, how I got into position with this strap, I put it underneath my knees, around the thighs, through the loop, or through that space between my groin and the rope and the strap, and onto the feet. It really is a very simple thing to do, and there's a lot more exercises that we can get into where we're incorporating this type of modification. The next one we're going to cover is isolated hip flexor lifts on rolls. That is one of my favorite exercises, and it adds a whole new dimension when you can really get your quads activated while you're doing that type of a hip flexor work. My name is Posture Monster John, psychedelic posture therapist. You can find my book, Psychedelics, Chronic Pain, and the Posturedelic Hypothesis on Amazon, on ebook, print, paperback, hardcover like this, whatever you prefer, June 4th. And I hope you enjoy this new modification to this exercise. I hope you subscribe, follow, do whatever you need to do to make sure you get updated when I release more exercises that you can do with this amazing and very inexpensive piece of equipment.